All right, morning, guys. There will be a chance for other people to ask questions, and the ones that are on camera, if you want to put your hand up, if you wait, when we get to a point where you do want to ask a question, that'd be most helpful. I can pass over to you. But some of the lads here have given me some questions that they've put together. A very simple one to both of you, which I suspect is going to be a very similar answer. And what football club do you support? So starting with you, Andy.
Sheffield United.
Sheffield United. Yeah, very plain and simple.
And obviously Chesterfield, because I've been there so long. But Sheffield United is my boyhood club, and we're playing for Chesterfield so long, you just grew to love Chesterfield.
Yeah. And how about you, Kev?
I'm the same, yeah, Sheffield boy. So grew up just probably a mile from Bramwell Lane. So used to travel down there with my older brother. Dad's side was Sheffield Wednesday, but that wasn't for me. So red and white all the way. So it's good to see him back in the Premier League, albeit they've been struggling a bit this year. They've picked up a little bit. So could be the great escape, we never know. But it's good to see one of the Sheffield teams back in the Premier League anyway.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, picked up a little lately, so that's good. And moving on to talking about the scholars and about their hopes and ambitions for the future. You've been in their position. So what advice would you give to young players who are wanting to progress in their career? Starting with you, Kev.
I think you have to try and seize the opportunity. I think you're all there for a reason. So you've got some football ability, otherwise you wouldn't be there. So for me, it's the other factors that now come into play. I always try and go by the 3 Ds, which is dedication, firstly. I think you have to give yourself 100% to the sport. That means doing all the right things off the pitch, doing all the right things when you're here, arriving on time, trying to utilise all the facilities and the coaching staff, ex-pros, anything you can, watching videos now. There's so many games on that you can learn your positions. And secondly, desire is a big thing with me. I think you need to have that from within. Nothing's going to stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. The stats are there. It's difficult to make the next step into getting a pro. It's likely that 2, 3, 4 of this group maybe get there, but what happens after that, there's still opportunities to go and maybe step down and play local football and then come back the other way. And then it's determination, because it's a difficult sport. You may have a new coach that comes in that doesn't quite fancy you as a player. It happens so many times. It happened in my career, being released 3 or 4 times professionally. And it's really difficult. It's how you deal with that. Do you have good friends around you? Do you have someone that you can go to for advice and support? Because there are so many knockbacks in the game, and it's difficult to take. You can either fall away or have that determination to want to prove people wrong. I got released from Sheffield United at the age of 16 when I left school, so heartbreaking. But Chesterfield came, picked me up, and I had that determination, desire, that dedication to want to, prove they were wrong. They made the wrong decision, which I think they did in the end. But I had that built within inside me. That's one of the hardest things. Andy does a lot of coaching. I've done the coaching to try and install that into a young player. You have got to have them. So that's what I would advise I would say.
Yeah, so it's very much about bouncing back from an early setback, which you did, of course, and Andy. It isn't always a smooth transition, and I'm sure that you can report sort of a similar struggle to make your way in the game.
Yeah, Kev's covered most of the topic, really. I started at Rotherham and I had 2-year apprentice there and then 2-year pro. And I suppose just like any other teenager, when the first team's not doing well, you expect to get a chance, and I wasn't getting a chance. You had pros there which were more or less embedded in the first team, and you weren't getting a look in. And a friend of mine who used to be in the youth team with me, Kevin Eli at the time, rang me up and just said, do you fancy coming up to Chesterfield? And I was like, where the bloody hell is Chesterfield? And because not had a clue, just a little Sheffield boy, not been anywhere. And to be fair, it was the making of me, really. Came over, signed at I think it was 19 at the time, and took it from there. You, like Kev says, you've got to take the opportunities. You've got to take every training session seriously, because there's always somebody watching, and you train like you play. So if you're going to mess about in training, you're going to do something silly in a game. So that's my advice.
Any questions from either on screen or in the room for advice about making your way in the game and anything that you can pick up on, do you think, guys, anywhere? If there's anybody on screen, just put your hand up. But
what do you think separates you from the rest? Like, obviously, being like, obviously, when you're in like academy and stuff, there's a lot of competition. So, what made you different from the rest? Because obviously, something made you stand out. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had the career you had.
yeah, I don't know if you could hear that, guys, but in the room, we've got a question there about what made you stand out from the rest. You know, obviously, it's a highly competitive industry. When you were making your way, what do you think enabled you to get into the side ahead of others who didn't make it? So, I don't know what you thought about that question, Andy. Anything that you can offer on that one?
I suppose it's a little bit different from me because I started my career before all these academies started. So there was no academies around. It was just local football teams, and then you got dragged into the youth setup at a football club. So I suppose I was like a foot taller than everybody else when I was playing, quite aggressive, and that kind of like stood out for me. It's a little bit different from Kev because it was at 16, it was like a man, and strong and powerful, and he had the world at his feet at that time with being so young. But for me, it was just that I was bigger and stronger than everybody else at that time, and you've got to use what you've got. If you don't, you're always going to fail. You've got to use every attribute you've got in the game, and if you've got a trick, use the trick. If you've got strength, use your strength. If you've got a bit of guile, use that.
And Kev, we mentioned there about physical attributes, mental attributes as well, about having that right attitude to make it in the game.
I think so. I think it's just something that it's so important these days, the psychology of things. I remember John Duncan, for instance, pulling me into a meeting with Kevin Randall, and you know, I'd broken into the team at a young age, 16, as Andy mentioned there. My childhood was, you know, playing football on the streets, on the council estate. You know, my sort of minutes that I was getting in with all the T-Triple-P stuff was just playing football with my friends, playing with my brother who was 10 years older. So that's where my toughness came. You know, not allowed to cry when you're injured. I broke my arm in a game you had to play on. It was pretty tough, my upbringing. So that's where I got all that from. That's just the way it was. But in terms of psychology, you know, John Duncan used to pull me in because, you know, he saw the talent there and he wanted to make sure that I had the work ethic to match it as well. So he would say, right, we're doing I mean, it was old school back then, and he'll tell you we were, you know, running around the pitch and up and down the stands and running to the park, and you know, we were having to, the young lads were having to pick up off the park before we trained. So it was a little bit different, but it was good in terms of keeping your feet on the ground. For me, thrown in from a young age, there was a lot to take on, but I was, as Andy said, I was physically able to do it. I felt I had the talent. I was always kind of a central midfield player until I got to Chesterfield, and then I think there was an injury early on to one of the players, and I got thrown on up front with Andy, I think it was, or it was, and it went from there. Yeah, probably. But I think, you know, John would say, I remember one conversation, he said, look, we're going to be doing this running session. Can you win? Can you win the runs? Can you be at the front? And, you know, Andy will tell you, I was a young one, so they would be telling all the young players to stay back, don't you dare overtake me. Sean Dyche was in there, Tony Bryan, there's some big characters there. So you're kind of battling with the older pros as well. But I had that desire to go and win the race. But just by John Duncan saying that to me, I think I finished in the top 3 out of the whole group, 25, 30 lads. Whereas before, I probably just coasted behind some of the older boys. And that shows there's a mentality to things, because you have the fitness, you'd hope, you have the ability, because all these boys have the ability. And it's that psychology, you know, Ronaldo, the desire to be the best in the world. You know, he had conversations with me after games, you know, about my timing in terms of heading the ball and things. He wanted to learn and take all that information in, because his desire was to be the best in the world, which he's done multiple times. So for me, the psychology of things are massive now in the modern game as well.
And having that sort of tough start to your career, you know, you didn't start right at the top, but obviously progressed in your career to eventually become an international. Of course, played many years in the Premier League. How do you think that helped you to start off pretty much at the bottom with Chesterfield?
I think it was a blessing in disguise. I always, my kind of, I'm an older type now with 4 kids, and I think, when I'm speaking to, I'm an agent now as well, so the players that I look after, I'm kind of, things happen for a reason. That's my sort of philosophy in life. Things happen. I think it was Steve Dungworth was the manager there at Chesterfield. Sheffield United made the decision to release me because I think I was always one of the better players in Sheffield. I represented Sheffield for a few years, played again for a local team called Brunsmere, which I loved. Then went to Sheffield, then obviously Sheffield United. And I think it was a tough period, being around 15, 16, going through puberty. Sheffield United were Premier League at the time. So there was lots of players coming in from around the country who were putting pressure on for places. And I think I felt that pressure for the first time. And I think my form dipped and I had 3 or 4 bad months. And that was my first real harsh lesson in football because I was told, I got the letter came through, thanks and good luck kind of thing, which I've still got. But it opened up an opportunity. I think John Duncan and the chairman at the time came to watch a game, which I was being invited to play in as a friendly. And I think it was an opportunity to impress. And it went from there, really. I was offered a scholarship with a pro contract at the age of 16. And as Andy said, broke in fairly early and had 4 fantastic years at Chesterfield. So for me, it was a perfect platform to learn, develop. And obviously, we had that fantastic cup run. We had a promotion at Wembley. And very fond years for me. We had a great group of lads, as Andy will tell you. We're all still good friends. But it was a good club. It was a good, starting point for me in my career.
Great. So, some further questions from the lads. What's the biggest game you've ever played in? If you can pick that one out, Andy. I'm going to have a guess, but I'll leave that to you.
Well, mine's quite obvious. I've not played as high level as Kev, but the biggest game I played in was obviously the semi-final in '97 against Middlesbrough. So that was the highlight of my professional career.
How about you, Kev?
I think the biggest one was probably the England debut. I think age of 33, I'd always been in kind of a lot of long squads and on standby for 2 or 3 years. So I thought the age of 33, the opportunity had gone really. So I think the whole week going down and spending time with these elite players, and then coming on and making a debut in a qualifier at Wembley was fantastic. Disappointed not to get a few more, but that one certainly was the proudest moment. I think the biggest game, we played against Bayern Munich in Germany, scored a late equaliser there. So that was a good one in terms of club career. I think that was the European. We had 2 campaigns. There was, we played some great teams, knocked Atletico Madrid out, and that was just something different from the league. Playing in the Premier League was fantastic, but playing in Europe was a highlight as well.
They've also picked out about the best stadiums that you've played at. So, what would you rate that as, Kev, as the best stadium that you played in during your career?
Saltergate.
Apart from Saltergate, of course, yeah.
Saltergate, yeah. Oh, it's up there, top 3, Saltergate. You know what? I think the old Wembley. I think we got to the playoff final. Tony Lawler scored against Bury. I think it was about 95, Andy, wasn't it? Something like that. I played most of the season and fell ill a week before. Yeah, I fell ill a week before, so I managed to get a place on the bench, which was disappointing. But the lads. I think just going to the old Wembley, and I played at New Wembley as well. But the old Wembley just had this aura around it, the Twin Towers. So playing there, winning at Wembley, that was just a special day out, really.
How about you, Andy? What would you rank as your best stadium that you played at?
I concur with Kev, really. The old Wembley being so iconic. Obviously not there anymore. We've got that over a lot of people coming through nowadays. And playing at Anfield when we drew 4-4 with Liverpool, that was a special day. But I'd say those are the 2 really highlights of grounds, really, which stick in my mind.
Old Trafford was special, Andy, wasn't it? The semi-final, Old Trafford was.
Yeah, well,
we've been used to playing.
Yeah,
in League One, League Two, and then.
If you can remember, there was me and who was it? Chris Beaumont, because we were like old farts. We didn't go. You guys went for a ground tour beforehand, if you remember. And we stayed at the ground because he said he couldn't be bothered to go. So we stayed at the ground. So I didn't really see much of Old Trafford. It was an amazing place when I eventually came out for the warm up. But I didn't really see much of it compared to you guys, because you had
one of those.
So
The atmosphere was amazing, though, wasn't it? Obviously, it's coming out.
It was unbelievable to come out and see that sea of blue on the right hand side. It was never, you'll never forget that ever.
And you mentioned that 4-4 draw at Anfield as well. We showed that during the first lockdown period. We replayed it on YouTube, and a lot of people joining us to watch that one that Saturday afternoon. And when you look at days like that, you know, it must be incredible to reflect on that in your career, Andy, that you reached those heights. You know, who would have thought 3-0 up against the mighty Liverpool? And that was before squad rotation. They had a very strong side out.
They did have a very strong side. I've always said it's all about player application. There's you could drop any, well, I won't say any, but you could drop quite a lot of lower league players into a Premier League side, and because of the players around them, they will rise to the occasion. And all it is after that is just consistency. And that day, I don't know whether they were off it or we were on it, but we played really well that day. And at the end of the day, it was all down to fitness and why they came back into the game to draw 4-4. But it was a special day, and one of the non-team talks at half time when the management came in, they didn't know what to say, so they didn't say anything because we were 3-0 at half time. So yeah, it was quite interesting.
We've mentioned John Duncan, but of course Kevin Randall takes a lot of credit as well for his input as part of that management team. Sadly, of course, no longer with us. But Kev, when you look back at somebody who helped shape your career in the early days, how influential was Kev?
Kev was massive on my career. Obviously, Kev signed me at Chesterfield when he was the manager there, and unfortunately, he got the sack, and then Paul Hart came in, and then Kev came back, which was I think an absolute masterstroke by the football club itself. And Kev was brilliant. Kev was always encouraging in his little way, which Kev can tell you. He had his little quirks, but Kev was absolutely brilliant in and around the ground, and is a great number 2 to John Duncan.
Yeah, what would you say, Kev, about Kevin's input?
I just think he's a real football man. I think he just loved the game. He's passionate about the game. That rubbed off on the players. I think they were the perfect combo, John and himself. You know, certainly had some different. It was a bit old school, but that was the way it was back then. You know, it was turn up for training, train, go home kind of thing. You look at the way the game's gone now, with all the science involved. You know, it's gone really professional, which is again, it's helped players to play longer. Like myself, played till 38. But Kev was just good to be around. You know, on the training ground. You know, tactically, it was always really good. Andy said there, we were a fit team. You know, it was good that they just built a really good atmosphere and a bond around the club, around the players, the staff, and there's a real togetherness. And I think that's a really important factor to any football club. But all the clubs that I've played at, the dressing rooms have been spot on. You know, it's good times. You know, having a good social at the right times. Not so much these days. We had that as a team. We were out together on a Saturday after a game, win or lose. You know, we had a real good team spirit. I think that's something that you need within the club. Yes, you have to be an individual. I think as a player, these boys here, you have to be better than the guy in your position, but also just be, you know, make sure you play your part in that team. It's crucial. And I think Kev and John created that around the place with their enthusiasm for the game, really.
Turning our attention to players, and the lads have asked, who's the best player that you've played with and against? So I know I'm putting you on the spot, Andy, but whether you can pinpoint any individuals that you've played with and against.
Oh, obviously Kev's one of them for what he's gone on to do. But Marcus Ebden, I loved playing with him. I thought he was absolutely brilliant in midfield. But one of my favourite centre forwards to play up with was Dave Waller when I first signed at the club. Not many of the young lads there will know Dave, but he was an absolute forward. He had everything until he got a compound fracture when he did his cruciate. But he was an absolute great player to play with, and a great foil, great partner. But I'd say those are the top three: Kev, Marcus Ebden, and Dave Waller.
How about, is there a particular defender who was difficult to play against that you can single out?
Really, the hardest one was probably Simon Coleman, but I think I was too old then. I think I was too old and too slow and couldn't really jump much. But so he gave me a lot of problems. And but other than that, it's just how you apply yourself with regards to me and Kev had different games compared to other forwards. I mean, obviously, Kev was quite quick as well, but I was a lot slower than most centre forwards. It was more aerial battles and strength battles on the ground. And I thought I held my own when it comes to that regard. When it came to speed, playing the ball over the top was a waste of time for me. So that would have been a little bit difficult. But what's that?
Play to your strengths.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't quick, so don't play to them.
How about you, Kev? Who would you pick out as the best you played alongside, first of all?
Yeah, I think obviously my first big move was to Southampton, so I think going down there at the age of 20 and then, you know, doing a tough pre-season and then obviously just seeing the ability of Matt Le Tissier. I think he was the first one I thought, wow, you know, because it's not something I'd been used to. I think I went straight into the environment as a young boy, very confident knowing that I could hold my own at that level. It was a jump of 2 leads, but he stood out for me just in terms of, it's a debate, are you born with the talent? And I felt that he had that natural talent. It's something that can be debated for days on end with coaches and things, but he just had something really special about him, just could do anything with the football, just absolute quality player. Just you learn so much from training against him. You try and reproduce them. I mean, if the boys are there, go and look at his 100-odd goals he scored in the Premier League. He's just scored some absolute worldies and belters. Great player. And again, decided probably to stay at Southampton because he was enjoying his football there. Maybe have some regrets now. I play a bit of golf with him every now and then now, and he's probably got a few regrets that he didn't quite move on to a bigger club and get more England caps. But in terms of a football player, he had it all. He was just absolutely outrageous. And the other one, probably similar to him, was JJ Kocha. Again, going into Bolton and seeing him play up close. I mean, again, go and look at his YouTube highlights. He could do anything with the ball, play football, you know, with a smile on his face. Just loved working every day, loved trying to better himself, physically very strong. People didn't see that about JJ. You talk about his tricks and his flicks and things, but strong, couldn't knock him off the ball. Captained the club as well. Just a really humble guy who loved playing football. So those two, in terms of ability, those are the two that stand out. Obviously, going away with England for a week, playing with, you know, likes of Rooney and Gerrard again on a different level. But you have to back yourself that you can compete with them, I think, as well. So that, listen, those are the two that stand out for me, really. JJ and Matt Tissier, just unbelievable talents, really.
Yeah. Any particular defender who gave you a hard time?
There's a few. I think, you know, down the leagues it was always quite tough. A lot more physical. League 2, League 1. I think Premier League, you play a bit more football, and I think the centre halves these days are all taught to get on the ball. That's the most important thing these days, isn't it? With these you know, the Stoneses of the world and people like that. So I think John Terry was always a good battle. I think we had mutual respect for each other. We knew it was going to be tough. But at the end of the game, we'd always shake hands and have a beer together and stuff. So I think we both enjoyed the challenges of playing against each other. You know, he certainly came off the wood a couple of occasions, got stretched off a couple of times, going in with challenges. But again, there was no, you know, we just got on with it and look forward to the next one. Really, there's a mutual respect there, which I think was a joy to have, really. Yeah.
Sure. So we've got around about just over 5 minutes left until final whistle. So I think we've got a question from inside the room, so I'll probably have to relay that.
Did you expect Sean Dyche to become a successful manager when you was like playing with him? Did you see him as like a leader and just.
All right. So a question regarding one of your old teammates, and that's Sean Dyche. Andy, did you expect to see him go on to do so well in management when you were playing alongside him?
Well, obviously not expecting him to go on to do so well. He was he's a very strong character in the dressing room, and he was always very talkative, very boisterous, and very confident person. But you're never going to guess he's gone on to do what he's gone on to do. So I'll keep the answers short because I know we haven't got much time. But the short answer to that is no. But he was always confident, so I'm not surprised.
How about you, Kev? Did you see a future manager in him when you were playing alongside Sean?
I don't think we kind of you don't really think about that. I think he was more just he's a good captain, a good leader, very vocal, but did things in the right way. I think he had that upbringing with Clough, who he's probably taken into his management career now. Traditional, hard-working, very fit, and again creates a really good atmosphere, which I think he took from the clubs like Chesterfield he played for. So I think we're all pleased to see him doing so well, and he's done a fantastic job at Burnley, that's for sure.
Okay, we've got I think the gaffer Neil Cluxton. I think he wants to ask a question.
Yeah, just the last one, Nick. Have Kevin and you got any advice for our youth team lads who at the moment have got limited training, just in terms of keeping themselves sharp and mentally still at it for the next 6 weeks or so?
Yeah, I don't know if the mic picked up that. Did you hear that at all? About how the youngsters can keep mentally sharp?
Yeah, I don't know how many bubbles or what people can get into, but I'm sure a few lads can get together and just have a little kick around, whether it's twos or threes, or whether it's going for runs, twos or threes. It's a lot easier to do it with a few people than do it on your own. Obviously, you don't need to get into mass groups, but you're all in your little WhatsApp group. I'm pretty certain you can get on a field somewhere and get twos and threes or fours, whatever it is, and just getting the ball passing around and just doing little things like that and keeping fit and going for runs and doing little things like that. I'm sure you can do that. Everybody else can.
Any advice from you, Kev, on that score?
Yeah, for me, it's no excuses, really. I think some players will just see it as an opportunity to use it as an excuse not to do anything. But I think you just can't have any excuses and make those excuses not to do the work. So get out on the roads, like Andy said. Go and work on your strength and conditioning. Come back. I remember doing runs with John Duncan, lamppost to lamppost. Slow jog, sprint. Go and do some bodies. Get yourself. Yeah. There's so much you can do with the internet these days. We didn't have those resources, so find a program, stick to it. Work on your strength and upper body. There's so much power involved in football these days. Get the thighs going, squats, get out and get fit. So when you do come back, you're ready to go. And don't give yourself too much to do in terms of your fitness when you come back, because injuries can happen then as well. So getting all those things done, do the best you can. Like Andy said, if you can get together down the park like we used to, go and do it.
How much do you think they can learn from watching other players in action as well, whether it's live or looking on video and just seeing what different players are doing? How important is that, do you think, to a youngster's development?
Kev can testify to this. Kev's been on courses like myself. If you're looking at players, just watch a player. Look at a really good player and watch how he plays. Watch where he moves. Watch his touch is like. Watch how he's scanning and little things like that. So that's the best way of watching a really good player, because some people go to a game and they'll watch the game overall instead of just watching one really, really good player. And that's my advice. But watch one good player, see what he does, see what his movements like, see what his work rate's like, and try and replicate that. Then you can, if you're doing your coaching courses, you can watch the whole game as a whole before, but just watch one player.
Okay, well, the final whistle is about to blow, so I'd like to, unless we've got a very quick question.
How do you think the first team will go up this season?
Do you think Chesterfield will go up this season?
Well, they've got a great chance now. They've picked up massively, and they're just a few points behind the playoffs, aren't they? So, fingers crossed. Yes.
Just very quickly from you, Kev.
Yeah, let's hope so. Obviously, I've been working with James. Brought some good players in, some new additions, which always helps the squad, lifts the quality, and they're in a good place. Only 1 defeat, isn't it, in the last 12 or something? So I think you can see them training behind you there. So they're going well, and I think they're going to be in the mix, certainly.
That's great. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us. Before we run out of time, appreciate your time and your answers to the questions from the lads. So thanks again.
Thank you for your time, Andy. Kevin, thank you very much.
No problem.
Cheers.
See you again
Good
soon.
luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks
Cheers,
all.
lads.
Cheers.
See you all.